All right, thank you once again. If you've just joined in, you're watching Good Morning Nigeria live on NTA Network. All right, our topic for discussion this morning is quality and standardization of Nigerian products. How can we make locally produced goods competitive, not just here in our country, but of course on the international market. But to start off our conversation, let's take this backgrounder from Ngozi Chude.
Nigeria has immense potential for exportable goods, but unfortunately, industry watchers are of the opinion that one major factor militating against the acceptance of local products in the international market is quality. For decades, this has been a major challenge, and the Standards Organization of Nigeria, as a regulatory body, has over the years tried to communicate the culture of standardization to Nigerians. Efforts that have not been yielding the desired results. Consequently, exports have now become virtually impossible. Coupled with the growing concern of most imported goods falling short of compliance with environmental and ethical standards, Nigerian manufacturers have been urged not to only provide for local consumption before export. However, recurring challenges affecting the realization of these have been quality control, poor packaging, inadequate storage facilities, poor regulations, and transportation. Nigeria still grapples with intense economic realities, and observers say now is the time for her to make her products exportable and competitive for foreign exchange earnings. The Standard Organization, established by Act No. 56 of 1971, with its functions, introduced the MANCAP certification, which is the Mandatory Conformity Assessment Program, aimed at ensuring that all locally manufactured products conform to relevant Nigerian industrial standards. Adding to this is the Nigeria Competitiveness Support Programs introduced to strengthen the capacity of the trade support institutions for trade policy and custom reforms. This is aimed at enhancing competitiveness of Nigerian institutions and products to favorably compete with and meet international standard. The thematic areas are the Federal Ministry of Trade and Investment, 4 selected local government areas, small and medium enterprises, and the Nigerian Quality Infrastructure, funded by multiple international development partners. The project will comprise key components such as strengthening trade support institutions, business and investment climate, and quality trade infrastructure. With about £230.5 million estimated to be expended on the program, how can it help capacity building for operators, balance trade volume deficit, and ensure quota-free markets for goods from sub-Saharan African countries? These are still on the front burner, and these are some of the issues guests will be discussing today on Good Morning Nigeria.
All right, thank you very much there, Ngozi Chude, for that background report. Now we have a number of guests with us here in the studios as well as at our Lagos Network Center to discuss the ramification of this subject matter. Right?
All right, let me quickly introduce the first guest. He is the Governor of Abia State, His Excellency Okezie Ikpeazu. We're very glad to have you with us this morning.
Thank you. Good morning.
We also have here in the studio with us Dr. Shaukut Hussein. He is the officer in charge, UNIDO NQI, that's National Quality Infrastructure Project. Mr. Hussein, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
All right, and then with us here still in the Abuja studios, we have Mr. Juan Kasla. Mr. Juan Kasla is head of section Economy and Energy of the European Union Delegation to Nigeria. Mr. Kasla, a pleasure to have you on Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you for having me.
Okay. And joining us from our Lagos Network studios, we'd like to welcome Mr. Emmanuel Ijewere. You can see him there on the right side of the split screen. Mr. Emmanuel Ijewere is a fairly familiar face on Good Morning Nigeria. He's an entrepreneur and, of course, an exporter and formerly a key player in the ECU to our directors. Once again, our pleasure to have you on Good Morning Nigeria, Mr. Ijewere.
Pleasure to have you on Good Morning Nigeria, Mr. Ijewere.
All right, Claire, let's begin the conversation with the governor of Abia. I mean, there's a report that you've gained quite some PR mileage lately with the donation, or did he pay for it? I'm not sure you're a trader, but I'm not sure former President Ambassador paid for those shoes. But you made a gift of Aba made shoes to former President Olusegun Obasanjo. And as you said, we've gained quite some mileage. Aba is one of Nigeria's very well-regarded industrial hub. But the key story has to do with the promotion of Made in Nigeria. How has this journey been for you and for all of us, who are involved in this and with whom you interact?
I will start from a very strange perspective because for the past 1 year, it may surprise you that I've, as a person, got out of rice. I don't eat rice anymore. Reason is that we spend $2 million every day to import rice. And it's my firm belief that if we all say, let's stop rice, for instance, it will do something to our economy. Beyond that, I don't even believe in our paradigm about food sufficiency. Are we really poor in terms of food sufficiency? Is it really true that we can't feed ourselves? I think the answer is no. What we are suffering from is the fact that we calibrate food sufficiency based on what the parameters set by the West. If you go to your table, you ask yourself, do you have ketchup? Do you have salad cream? Do you have all that? Do you have basmati rice? And as long as we continue to do that, we will continue to be counted as a nation that is not food sufficient. If you tell your grandmother today, just put a call across and say, Mama, I'm coming with 5 visitors, and you spend 7 days in the village, are you guys going to be hungry? You won't be hungry. So I am leading a crusade that will bring back cocoyam, bring back all our local cuisines, because this is what makes us. I do not want to talk about what all of those has done to our health going forward, because I'm a biochemist, but I want to look at it from the perspective of common sense. Why do we have to flood our table with things that we don't produce, whereas we have a lot of things we produce? Going down the line, I don't know the kind of wife my own daughter is going to be to her husband, because she can't make the kind of soup that my grandmother used to make and all that. So we have to think about all those. Beyond that, anyway, 1 year ago, we had to take a decision, and then along the lines of what is it we are very good at
you mean
Abia people?
Abia State
Yes. Where do we have comparative advantage over other people? And for me, the rallying point in Abia is our people, the strength and resilience and industry of Abia people. And consistently since the past 20 years, we've been exporting shoes and leather works to all parts of Africa. Consistently, we haven't stopped. But this may not be captured in our GDP and all the kind of calculation and parameters and indices. But I know that it's because I'm from Aba. So I decided to say to myself, time has come for us to speak about the things we do and let the world know. 2 months ago, I attended a World Bank conference and I was wearing something like this, and nobody laughed and jeered at me. I wear Made in Aba dresses, I wear Made in Aba shoes as long as I can. I wear, so for all these things that we're able to do, our bags, our, all kinds of things. What have we really been able to do in terms of telling the world that this is where we are? Because is it true that one should not actually blow his trumpet? If you don't blow your trumpet, who will blow it for you? So we are trying to raise some national consciousness, because our target is that if we can make shoes and bags for Nigeria, 150 million people, assuming 30 million people wear our stuff, we won't be able to meet the Nigerian market, and that is what we are. I think over sophistication is our problem, and that is what I'm backing.
Okay, then I usually ask, start from a very personal perspective for those who champion Made in Nigeria goods. And I see from the, the sleeve of your shirt, you have the trademark proudly Aba. I don't know, we can't get that on camera, but what inspired this renewed, drive for, patronage of locally made goods for you, for your state?
Quite clearly, my ambition as the chief servant of my state is to, bequeath a better life for my people. And if you have to do that, you have to encourage them to do that which they are very good at. And if I am not proud of what my people produce, I don't know who would be.
Are you proud in terms of the quality of what they have? Are you convinced about the quality of what they produce?
I'm excited about the energy, the industry, the hard work. they put into every stitch of cloth they make. Because if you go there, some of them can only get like 3 hours of sunlight. They stay indoors all night all day trying to, make things for themselves. That is key for me. Then we cannot work on the quality, because patronage drives quality. If demand is there, from time to time, you begin to improve, because you get a feedback from your customers. Oh, you didn't do this very well. Oh, the shoes didn't fit properly, and all that. And going forward, you begin to improve. You can't improve on nothing. But we must begin to be proud of the things we make, for the love, for the industry, for the hard work, for the sweat that goes with every stitch. And if you love Nigeria, you should patronize Made in Nigeria.
All right, Governor Ikpeazu, thank you very much. Just to go over to our Lagos Network Center, Mr. Emmanuel Ijewere will keep the other guests in the Abuja studios in the meantime. Mr. Ijewere, you listened to Governor Ikpeazu describe the products coming out of Aba. Now, for you as a businessman as well as your other colleagues, ultimately what this boils down to is survival. Now, there are sometimes that some places have also said sweeping statements about the quality of Nigerian products. And then you're also fighting against the tide of the high influx of imported goods into the country, presumably goods that are superior to those produced in Nigeria. How do you, as a manufacturer, and on the other hand also as an exporter, have to deal with, the tension between the presumed quality of Nigerian goods and those that come from outside our shores?
Thank you very much. My first reaction is to say I'm very proud of the governor for the way he spoke, the emphatic manner with which he spoke, and the pride he has in made in Aba goods. And the kind of body language and the example he has shown is exactly the foundation that we need to make Nigerian production a lot more acceptable to the people outside. Having said that, the issue of quality must be one that is for example, what I cannot eat, I should not expand, I should not export. What I cannot consume myself, I should not give to other people. However, the history of quality, when I was growing up, made in Japan, people laughed at. But because the Japanese continued consistently, they became very good at it because they continued to produce, they continue to get the feedback and improving, and today Japanese are produce some of the best quality of products in the world. Then, a few years ago, it was made in China, that was the joke. Today the Chinese have done very well. Nigeria needs to learn from that. But we as a people must first of all look inwards to improve what we are doing first. As of today, the truth is that given the quality of what we can produce, especially because of the infrastructural challenges we have and so on, we should improve our own internal production first before thinking of going on exports. If you go too fast, a child that is born and starts working at the age of about 7 years may end up with bent legs because the bones are not strong enough. We must therefore do things consistently. We need NAFDAC and SON to work with the private sector, not against the private sector, not to be the bloodhound of the private sector, but the partners of the private sector. Tell them new things they need to do to improve on what they are doing. The other issue that we need as a country is from the top, like what the governor has just done for his own state. Our leaders themselves must first of all say, if in the state house, only Nigerian-made goods will be given priority. In all the state houses in Nigeria, that could be a rule. We start from there. The body language becomes the positive one. We start thinking on the impact. Let's take rice, for example, in reverse. The mentality is that made in Nigerian rice is lower quality. That is absolutely wrong. Most of the rice we import come from countries who send to us what they don't need from the strategic reserve. The minimum age is over 5 years old. The Nigerian rice is fresh. Yes, so many years ago, when we did not have the proper milling capacity and the best practices, we had stones in rice. But that is history. But today, people are still talking about imported rice, and they are more expensive. That is good for Nigerian business because our own rice has got to a level where the quality has been so high. So I'm asking the governor, go back to eating rice, but Nigerian rice. In fact, everyone is even producing rice. So I'm saying that we must have the courage to say this is where we want to go. It's not enough to talk about export, export, export. Europe comes up with its own rules. What is good for us? What is our standard? And they follow through. Nigeria needs to create its own standard too in terms of our own import. Let's start from there. For example, if we say any rice to be imported to Nigeria must be a maximum of 1 year or 2 years old, that is a standard. That will now be giving us a competitive edge over them. Our Nigerian rice and Nigerian food are very good, but we can still improve on them. Education is very, very important. We have a problem there. Because of the size of the nation, the demand of the people, and we're not having enough industries to meet this. We have all kinds of people doing this in the back of their yards. Quality is bad. Many of those hawkers do this because they have to survive. But the quality of what they sell on the streets, and in some cases, are not very healthy for our people. What I'm actually saying here is that let us go back to the basics. Let us not go for the big, big industries. We don't. Even the power situation will not allow you to be competitive on international forums for you to start competing in terms of producing and sending out. But the issue that was raised, in fact, recently a very, very good friend of mine, very, very top person, showed me his shoes. And I said, they are beautiful. And he said that they were made in Aba. And since then, I've been looking for the young man who made it because I need to also change my shoes to made in Aba because I'm proud of what I saw. And Governor, please turn that place into something that will be something that other governors in Nigeria will be proud of. I'm proud of Aba. I'm proud of Made in Nigeria. Let's start from there before talking about what we send out to the European Union. Their standards as of today are too high for us. We don't have those basics to be able to achieve it. But those things that we can send out, which I again have a problem with, like the cocoa industry. Our cocoa industry is just beginning now to go into a value adding, into making cocoa butter, cocoa cake, and cocoa powder. But we're now moving on to the chocolate part of it. Let us give ourselves enough chocolate, improve on it. By feedback from customers, you improve on it. When we get to that level, we start exporting. We have a huge market, and let us now enjoy the economic advantage we have, given the size of our market. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Ijere, let me quickly, just before we come back to, of course, our guests from the EU and the other guests here from UNIDO. If we've made so much gain on the quality of our products and the goods that we produce, why is it then that we're making so much effort to get Nigerians to patronize them?
It's because there is a disconnect between the producers and the consumers. There is this mentality, like I gave the instance of rice. How many people know that most of the rice we eat in Nigeria have in fact been certified by NAFDAC and SON to be unfit for human consumption when I'm talking about imported rice? How many people know that Nigerian rice is better quality and has and is better for your has better nutrition? How many people know? So there is a disconnect in terms of information. Information dissemination is a big, big problem we have. So what I'm actually saying is that when something is good, people don't know it's good. If you put made in Italy shoe and made in Nigerian shoe, even the Nigerian one looks nicer, you will think at the back of your mind that there is a trick there, that it was only painted. When in actual fact, until you buy it and you use it, you will not know. So communication is very, very important. Again, Governor, I'm sorry I'm using you as a target. Please make communication. Tell us about Aba. Tell us more about Aba. We need to hear about Aba. Let us use Aba. Let's use Aba as the prototype for Nigeria's economic well-being.
All right, of course, you have the governor's, the governor has already said he will present your own shoes, Mr. Ijere. But let's get back to the studio here. Of course, we have the EU representative, Mr. Juan Katzler. Mr. Juan Katzler, EU is supporting, this initiative, promoting locally made products. First of all, what can you tell us about the national quality infrastructure? Give us a breakdown of what that entails.
Let me start by saying that important things have been already mentioned in this program. This emphasis on made in Nigeria, the revitalization of the Nigerian manufacturing, and the need to increase the quality of the Nigerian products, both for the domestic consumption, as it has been mentioned before, as a first step, but then for the export of these products abroad. We are trying to help in this objective. The program that we have put in place, the Nigeria Competitiveness Support Program, aims at improving the competitiveness of the Nigerian economy and the diversification of the Nigerian economy away from oil. And it has a very important focus on quality. And here, coming back to your question, it is good to promote made in Nigeria, but it is easier said than done. In order to improve and to increase the quality of the Nigerian products, particularly manufacturing, you need to put in place a whole system that we call a quality infrastructure system. This system includes a good standardization process that makes sure that there are standards that are well known by all the producers in Nigeria. You also need to make sure that there are laboratories in Nigeria that are able to test the quality of the products that are sold in the market but also exported abroad according to the standards and the regulations. And apart from that, you also need to make sure that the measures and all the different calibrations that are used in these testings are correct. So there are a number of technical institutions that need to be put in place in order to ensure these two things. One, that Nigerian consumers have access to safe, high-quality products for a good price, and that when Nigeria starts exporting to the international market, they can demonstrate that these products apply and comply to the international standards. It has been said that the EU standards are very high. Standards are high in all export markets across the world, and Nigeria has to recognize that. And it is really an effort for the country to be able to increase and improve the quality of their products and to demonstrate that to the potential importers. There have been examples given about countries like Japan, like China, who have been able to improve the quality. They have based their development and their economic expansion and explosion, I would say, on exports. Standards are high abroad, but the benefits and the profits are also very high. So again, I think that the tactic or the strategy to focus first on the huge domestic market and to ensure that this domestic market has access to good quality products which are safe is a first step. But then Nigeria needs to be thinking about the foreign market.
Mr. Jewere did talk about domesticating some of these standards that we talked about first, before, looking outside. What do you have to say to that?
This is a role that the Standardization Organization of Nigeria has. They are the ones who are setting the standards of all the products that are sold in Nigeria. Let me say that these standards are set in cooperation with the representatives of the industry. These are voluntary standards in most cases. It is necessary for the Standardization Organization of Nigeria to be able to do this work well. And also the Standardization Organization of Nigeria needs to be able to explain and to inform about the standards that are applicable abroad. Nigerian exporters, they need to know what are the standards and the technical regulations that they have to comply with when exported to the European Union or to any other market. This information, access to this information is key for the Nigerian manufacturers who wish to export abroad.
All right, Mr. Juan Kasla, thank you very much. We'll come back to you. You raised a number of important points to see how the synergy is going between the EU and relevant Nigerian regulatory agencies. Now let's bring in Dr. Shaukat Hussain of UNIDO NIQ into the conversation at this time. Dr. Hussain, you are involved with the UNIDO National Quality Infrastructure Project, which also speaks to some of the points articulated a moment ago by Mr. Kasla. How well has the quality infrastructure project, proceeded in the country, and therefore, where are we on the continuum?
Yeah, basically this National Quality Infrastructure Project is the EU-funded project. This project is basically is to produce the missing link in the international trade. So we are supporting to the institutions which are already there in Nigeria in terms of their capacity building as per the international trades, as per the international best practices, guidelines and the standards. And we are basically developing some of the institutions which at present are not available in Nigeria. For example, this national quality infrastructure project in any country supposed to be of 3 and 4 pillars. One important pillar is the standardization. In Nigeria, this standardization is already available in terms of SON is available. But the other very important pillar in this regard is the accreditation body. You know, in Nigeria, the accreditation body is not available, and through this program, we are going to establish the NINA, that is Nigerian National Accreditation Services, that is the apex body in Nigeria. As this is the same body in any country, you will see the apex body is the accreditation services. So in this way, we are developing the NINA, that will be the Nigerian Accreditation Services. It will basically accredit the conformity assessment structure in Nigeria. In the conformity assessment structure, there are certification bodies, there are inspection bodies, there are basically the laboratories. So these inspection bodies, these laboratories, these certification bodies will demonstrate the capability and the capacity as per the international recognized structure, as per the international recognized guidelines. So any product that will be certified or tested in Nigeria then would be accepted throughout the world, be based on this Nigerian National Accreditation Services. So this NQIP project will boost the basically the export of the Nigerian product, will boost the competitiveness of the Nigerian enterprises.
All right, Dr. Hussein, let me quickly add that His Excellency here, Governor Ikbazu, talked about, patronage driving quality. Now, with regards to produce, where does quality monitoring start? Is it, from processing, to harvesting, or is it at the finished stage, at the stage of, taking them to the laboratory?
Yeah, basically the dry beans quality starts from the farm up to the fork. So it starts from the producing the dry beans into the field and then harvesting it, then shifting it to the market and storing it, and finally when it will go to the local consumer, it will go to the export, it must be safe. So throughout this value chain, we have to take care about each step as per the international guideline and standards, and on each step we have to maintain the quality as well as the safety. So through this dry bean value chain, that is a zero rejection program, and it is already being accepted by the interministerial committee. We are going to develop a zero rejection methodology, and it is at this stage it is being implemented in the dry bean, and the same methodology later on will be implemented with other products as well.
Well, I was just wondering, Dr. Shaukat Hussein, I would like you to explain. I hope I got it correctly, or perhaps I didn't understand what you were saying. You were talking about accreditation body, that it is apparently no accreditation body for the standardization of products. How would you reconcile that with the existence of the Standards Organization of Nigeria, which is a statutory agency that does this? Is that what you mean?
No, basically in the international scenario, in every country there must be a standard body that work is to produce the standard, to adopt the international standard. And parallel to that, there must be an accreditation body that work is to confirm those standards, to check those standards through some conformity assessment structure. So the standard body is already there, but the accreditation body is not available. So we are developing the NINAS, that is the Nigerian National Accreditation Services. This is a basically missing link. In similar way, the missing link with respect to the quantity, that is the National Metrology Institute, that we are going to establish with the support of SON in Ibogo. So both these institutions are new in Nigeria in terms of, the NINAS will basically deal with the quality and the NMI that will deal with the quantity.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Dr. Hussein. Now to return to one Kasla of the European Union delegation to Nigeria. When you were responding to my colleague's question a moment ago, you also talked about the need for testing laboratory measures and units, and in your drive for quality infrastructure and quality assurance, what level of cooperation have you received, for instance, from MITI? MITI stands for the Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment. There is a unit in charge statutorily of weights and measures. That's one. And second point, that's what I also sought clarification from Dr. Shakut Hussein a moment ago. The Standards Organization of Nigeria has, has the facilities for testing some of these things. And on the heels of the rejection of beans, by the EU, a laboratory was opened. That I think it was at the Lekki offices of SON. So, two questions for you. One, what is the cooperation between the EU, cooperation and collaboration between the EU and the Weights and Measures Unit in the Federal Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment, because this is a federal matter, by the way, according to our Constitution. And secondly, what's your relationship with SON with regard to accredited laboratories or standard laboratories for testing Nigerian-made products?
On the first question, we have a very close relationship with the Federal Ministry of Trade, Industry and Investment. In fact, this ministry is actually chairing the steering committee of this project, of the Nigeria Competitiveness Support Program. So we have a very, very close collaboration with them on this project and on other projects that we are working with them. That is the way we do things when we cooperate, in this case, with Nigeria. So the department in the ministry that is in charge of weights and measures has been participating with us in the program. It's been totally integrated in the program. But as Dr. Shauka was mentioning, one of the important building blocks of any quality infrastructure system is establishment of a true metrology institute, an institute that independently will set measures and will make sure that all the testing that is done in the country is done in accordance and in compliance with the right measurements and calibration. So that is why it's so important to set this thing up. Let me say that the government is already building this metrology institute. They are investing in the physical infrastructure, and the project is going to work on the establishment of all the operating procedures and all the software that is needed for this particular important building block of the quality infrastructure of the country. Again, in true collaboration with the Weights and Measures Unit of the Federal Ministry of Trade, Industry and Investment. On the second question of SON, as I was saying before, SON, the Standards Organization of Nigeria, is the body that is in charge of the standardization process in the country. First, directed to the products that are sold in the country, but also providing information about what kind of standards and what kind of technical regulations are applicable in the export markets. The accreditation unit, which is NINAS, is the one that Dr. Shauka was referring to, is the unit that has to make sure that all testing for the products in Nigeria, in order to make sure that these products comply with the standards, is done correctly. And they are the ones who will accredit all the different laboratories that are operating in Nigeria. So that's why it's important that this unit, NINAS, is also independent. And importantly as well, with time, the expectation is that the accreditation that NINAS does will be recognized internationally. So any product that has been tested in Nigeria by a laboratory that has been accredited by NINAS will be also recognized for export. And that is the ultimate goal of the exercise. Mm-hmm.
What is the time frame for the exertions by the EU, as well as of which UNIDO is also a part? In other words, there must be timelines to say, within 5 years, this is what we hope to achieve. We would have set up the Institute of Meteorology, that's metering, by the way, and then we have set up the accreditation center, and then they're up and running, as it were now. Do you have any of those things in place? And what times are you looking at for proper takeoff?
The project has a duration of 3 years. Now we are looking at the possibility of extending this project. But we we look at the results, and one of the important results of the project is the setting up of the accreditation body and also the setting up of the Metrology Institute. This is now in progress, and we expect that in the next accreditation unit is already in place. Laboratories are being accredited already by MINAS. But this is in progress, and we hope that in the next 1.5 years, the main foundations of the system will be in place. We are a development cooperation organization, apart from other roles that the European Union has in Nigeria. That is one of our important roles here, and we like to support the country. But at some point, there needs to be some kind of sustainability in our programs. We cannot be continuously support. So one of the important elements of the program will be the exit strategy. What will be the provisions that are put in place by the authorities in order to make sure that these institutions will continue to operate. These institutions receive fees from the laboratories and the private operators to which they provide their services. So this is the main source of sustainability of these institutions. But let me say that our support to the improvement of competitiveness in Nigeria doesn't stop there. We are looking at other projects in other sectors. We are looking at the possibility of supporting value chains, important sectors in the country that are competitive, maybe textiles, maybe agribusiness. We're also looking at energy as an important area that affects the investment climate in the country. And we are also looking at the technical skills that have been, in a way, neglected for some time. And if Nigeria wants to revitalize both manufacturing and agricultural processes, there is a need for an important investment in technical skills. So as I said, the project has an end, but there should be some sustainability for the current project, but we're looking at other areas that are important for the Nigerian competitiveness in our future programs.
Okay, Mr. Councillor, just before we bring in the governor, what in your view, or how in your view, are Nigerian products doing on the international market? Because we have, some time ago, over 100, rejects of Nigerian products on the international market.
I think that you have picked an issue that I think is in the minds of many Nigerians, which is the fact that some Nigerian products, particularly dry beans, have been rejected by in this case, the EU health authorities because of a high presence of pesticides in the country. Let me say that this probably is something that is also applicable to the Nigerian consumers, and I think that our colleague in Lagos was saying that we cannot export what we cannot consume. So that applies also in the reverse. But we are including in the program a component to support the strengthening of this value chain for dry beans as a pilot. We hope that this strengthening of this value chain in dry beans will lead to zero rejection in the future. But the experience should also help the Nigerian authorities to focus on other programs and other products that should be exported. We are very well aware that Nigeria has been focusing on oil products as its main export. But I think that there is now an opportunity and a realization that oil cannot be the main export commodity for Nigeria, and that Nigeria should be looking at other products. Quality is a key aspect on this, and this exercise and this project that we are having to set up the quality building blocks of the Nigerian quality system should help Nigeria start the export drive. Exports produce growth. They are a huge source of foreign revenues, and they are a huge source of economic activity and jobs. So it is something that Nigeria should be looking as a next step in its economic development.
All right, Mr. Councillor, thank you very much. Now let's return to the Governor of Abia State, Mr. Ikpeazu. That's the point that I would like us to explore from the comments that you made earlier, and then the other guests have also touched on. And it is as follows. Bottom line is you will have to, as an industrial enclave, need to up your game, as it were. Now, in Aba, which is famous for leather works, including shoes and so on and so forth, what, in your opinion, is required at this stage to move that productive enclave from a mom-and-pop business type or a cottage type to one that aspires to dealing with and utilizing standards formally set by the national quality infrastructure, such as been discussed at the moment, so that if I pick up a size 9 shoe with a stamp on it size 9 or size 10, 43 or 44, it's actually so and not 42 or 41.
Well, I'll quickly tell you what I've been doing since the past 1 year. Initially, I started by saying, well, let me take a stock of all my shoemakers and garment producers and then put them in cooperatives and in clusters and get equipment from Turkey or an agreeable economy to automate their processes and procedures going forward. I've tried to do it, and we have met with, I've not received the kind of cooperation that I expected from my shoemakers. So it took me to something. There must be a sociocultural consideration in whatever you want to do in Africa and in Nigeria, because the way our people perceive development and change vary from one location to the other. So we have now recalibrated and decided to do development in situ. We go meet them because there are 9 clusters for shoemaking in Aba. So we have taken a stock and a survey of that environment, and we are providing power. We are going to provide paved roads. The roads may not be wide, but of course we will pave it and remove flood and stormwater. And then we set up a resource center, because part of what the problem is here is a gap in communication. The guy who exported beans never knew that there was need to watch the pesticides. So from point of seedling through to cropping, the practices and procedures must be world class if you want to export. And then the need for the standardization is to put a statement of facts with empirical data backing it up to say, this is what we have in this bottle. So for us in Abia, apart from providing light, providing the resource center, there's going to be internet facility so that the traders can come and know what is happening in shoe production factories in Brazil and compare it with what they are doing. They can do that. And then, but most importantly, we set up our marketing board and quality assurance office. We have a marketing board and a quality assurance office. Now, we're not going to open laboratories, but we're going to make sure that that office serves as an adapter between what is happening elsewhere in the world and in Nigeria and what is happening in those various industrial clusters as they are in Abia. And then finally, we're going to work on provision of primary required products like gum, glue, buckles, and all that. These are things which, if you allow the trader to go and begin to go to China to look at, you may have problem of quality at the end of it. So there are a few things we intend to warehouse and help them produce because of their perception and the level at which they are now. But so that is what I think is the role of government. And again, we must intervene at the end of packaging, because the shoes I'm wearing is made in Aba.
Yes,
yes.
Can we lift it so camera can see? Is it, sorry? Okay.
Shoes are made in Aba shoes. If you go to buy them, you pick them up in cellophane bags. But I can package them and put them in beautiful, so all that is what we want to do. Then our people can't access loans. We can't access grants because they need somebody to explain to them that you can actually borrow and pay over 25, 30 years and all that. And then another critical factor that is very, very important to our people is the ability to expose themselves in terms of trade fairs and be proud to say, yes, we produce. Otherwise, they make shoes and stamp made in Italy. We will be able to stop all that.
All right, Your Excellency, let me quickly bring in the Dr. Hussein from UNIDO here. Dr. Hussein, you've listened to the governor of Abia State and what he's doing at the subnational level. Is UNIDO contemplating supporting state governments with such initiatives?
Yes, basically this national quality infrastructure program is for the whole Nigeria, for the country. And we have conducted many training courses into different states. We have conducted almost 300 plus courses with respect to the laboratory people in 6 geopolitical zones. We have conducted 120 people participated in our lead assessor courses with respect to ISO 9001. I mean, the sustainability is basically to train the local people, because once this project will be over, then all this infrastructure that is going to be developed, that is being run and that is being executed by the local people. So for this sustainability purpose, we are definitely conducted many capacity building programs in different states, and we will be happy to reach to the governor state to conduct some of the courses with respect to the laboratory, as he has mentioned that some of the laboratories are there in the leather sector. So basically the leather is also in our Conduit of Excellence program. That is another program. We have selected in the Conduit of Excellence shea butter, we have selected the dry beans, we have selected the melon seeds, we have selected the leather and the artisanal gold. So in this respect, definitely leather in the terms of the leather, we would be happy to support this state.
All right, Dr. Shaukat Hussain of UNIDO, NIQ. UNIDO stands for NQR, that is National Quality Infrastructure. We'd like to thank you for being part of our conversation on Good Morning Nigeria today.
Thank you.
All right, it's still Good Morning Nigeria. We are reaching you live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. But just before we go on a short break, let's go over to Mr. Emmanuel Ejewere at our Lagos Network Center. Mr. Ejewere, that's the point that Governor Pazu was explaining a moment ago. I would like you to take out from there. Of course, you are from the private sector, find huge investment opportunities in what's playing out at Aba at the moment, in the sense that to be able to ratchet up what they are doing now, mom and pop, cottage, or cooperative industries, you need some huge injection of capital to get the right kind of equipment, because it's not clear how long the state government can continue to inject capital into their businesses when they don't have access to loans and grants and so on and so forth. What do you think is required to scale up their business projects?
First of all, I thank the governor, the state governor, what they are doing, but it's important to remember that demand drives quality. Whatever it is they are putting in there must be dictated by what the market wants. It must be dictated by those private sector operators who know where it pinches. I think the state government should provide them help in terms of infrastructure, because two things customers look for are: one, price; two, quality. Once those two are available, as for prices of goods produced in Nigeria are driven up because of the infrastructural disadvantages we have. We've got to create our own water, create our own roads, provide our own electricity. These are challenges that they face, and therefore that drives up the price. Now, as for quality, the issue of quality is a private sector thing, and it's the customer that will determine that. Now, as Nigeria does not really have a domesticated policy on export or on quality, this should be made clear. Once this is done, we must now use it first and foremost as an import substitution policy, rather than export policy, because we are not ready to meet and challenge the industrial world in terms of exporting our finished products. Our costs are too high. We've not gotten ourselves to the position of creating those qualities that will compete with them there. Let's start with ourselves, and we are glad God gave us a huge market here in Nigeria. In fact, not just Nigeria, the whole of the West Africa, for us to practice our trade before we go out to the world. The danger we have of trying to push export, and we continue to get a bad name, is that name will stick. So let us reduce that and concentrate on developing our local market. Import substitution, we're spending so much money importing. Let us replace those and practice with that before we go forward. That is a better planning for a nation, rather than we'll talk about export because the word sounds so good and can get foreign exchange. There are two sources of foreign exchange, The ones that we are getting, we are spending it. Let's stop spending it. Then we keep the foreign exchange to do other things that are useful. Another point is what are the priorities Nigeria has? Food is the first thing and easiest thing, and about 70% of our populace are involved in that area. We're importing a lot of food, import substitution. There's virtually nothing. Like the government mentioned earlier, Dr. Ikpeazu said that we're talking about ketchup and so on and so forth. You can call it whatever you want to call it, but it can be made in Nigeria because we have the tomatoes to make it in Nigeria. Then instead of importing that same thing, let us try our own and improve on it. Then we'll get to a stage where our supermarkets will say, yes, this quality in Nigeria is as good as the one we have imported from other parts of the world. These are the attitudes. There must be a plan. It's not just left to the whims and caprices of people. There must be a plan for it to be done, and for all those people in leadership to commit themselves to using and eating made in Nigeria. This is very, very important. Unless we start that, all this talk we're talking about is absolute waste of time. Our leadership needs to be convinced that there must be a proper plan to do this. The economic situation in Nigeria today gives us this opportunity of going back to the drawing board, reconstructing ourselves, changing our mindset, and seeing the reality of the paradigm that has shifted and move in that direction. So I want a lot more governors to go to their various states like Ikpeazu has done, see what we are doing there, because we talk about the federal government. The federal government has no land, federal government has no industry. It's the state governments that control all of this. So the powers should start from the states and the local government. What is the commitment of local government to all this? Cooperating with their own local private sector. The private sectors in Nigeria are on their own. There's no cooperation between. As soon as you start doing something on your land, the first thing they call for is to ask you for tax. That is very discouraging. But if they understand the problems of the private sector, they can do a lot more. Like in agriculture, for example, I don't see any reason why.
Mr. Emmanuel Ijewere, thank you very much. Gentlemen, we'll just take a quick short break. When we come back, we'll continue with our conversation.
What's your name, my dear?
Her name is Jabel.
Chantel. I love taking my selfies.
I have 2 selfies too. I'll give you one and I'll make you the floor.
Are you serious?
So why don't you hop into my car and go to my hotel room and now?
I wasn't thinking straight.
I was thinking 6 years.
Selfie Stick. This week's episode of Professor John Bull, starring Kanayo Okanayo, Mercy Johnson, Queen Wokoye, Yomi Fash Lanso, and special guest appearance by Yvonne Nelson.
If you say me in a bushman, you're not forest man.
Me?
But you're not desert man. You are a jungle man.
Professor John Bull, this Tuesday and Friday, 8:30 to 9 p.m. on NTA Network International and Star Times.
I don't think I'm looking fine here.
No, you're fine. Don't worry.
See my eyes here. No,
you're not that fine.
No, eh?
Over and out.
Welcome to the new speed of life.
Stand up, Nigeria. Change is here and it's going to stay. Change begins with you. Oh yeah, make we go. Voting for us, let the change begin from within. Look at your eye, oh Gerula. Change begins with you and me. Oh, change begins with me. Change begins with me. Change begins with me.
All right, we welcome you back to Good Morning Nigeria, and we are still on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. We are continuing with the conversation, and at this time we'd like to welcome another guest who has just joined us. It's Mr. Ezekiel Davo. Is head of market development of the Nigerian Commodity Exchange. Mr. Davo, a pleasure to have you on Good Morning Nigeria today.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, let's begin with you in this second leg of the conversation. I'm sure you had the benefit of listening to the comments made by the other guests with respect to the quality of Nigerian goods, the standards that are required to be met first, for local consumption, and then subsequently for export, which could be some good forex earner. But essentially, how does the commodity exchange respond to all of this? I mean, an exchange means that you must be sure of your quality, you must be sure of your standards. But in the meantime, we're not doing that.
Yeah, thank you once more. The issue of quality, just like the slogan of UNDP, said think globally and act locally. Quality, as far as the operation of the Nigerian Commodity Exchange is concerned, it's not just possible for you to have commodities that are traded on the exchange that do the quality. First and foremost, quality starts from where? It starts from even the planting period, the planting stage. What it does is that you even require the requisite seed varieties to be planted. And this will have been determined by the destination market, that's the demand, which has actually been already addressed. And once the requisite, varieties is planted, what is expected of it is that you need the best agronomic practices that will also ensure that the right quality of the commodity, that particular commodity is harvested. And the fact about it is that once that one is achieved, before a commodity is actually brought to the floor of the exchange, it must have been tested by maybe through some accredited laboratories. Once the quality parameters are certain, then the commodity can now be traded. It can also be traded either locally or maybe exported, depending on where the buyer is. And the fact about it is this: it is not just possible for you to have the requisite commodity without discussing with the destination market. There is this other initiative that the Federal Ministry of Industry and Investment started some years back. They call it Commerce 44. They're looking at 11 commodities, 11 destination markets, and 11 producing areas. So the intention is to look at the commodity and then look at the quality parameters in those particular markets, so that the demand can now drive the production of those particular commodities. And once those ones are achieved, the commodity can gainfully be traded on the floor of the exchange. And the bottom line is this one is also supported by what we have as an initiative from the exchange, what we call the warehouse receipt system. It is not just possible for you to have a commodity that does not meet the requisite quality, that can also have a warehouse receipt that is also attractive to the buyers. And once you have the warehouse receipt, because the commodity meets the requisite quality parameters, the commodity is being traded based on specification. That's specification that is on the warehouse receipt. And the specification of the warehouse receipt is what will be attractive to the banks.
Just to add to Mr. Davo, we're looking at generally the general products, not just commodities. So in your response, you can also take that into consideration.
Yes, please. Yeah, because I am saying this because of where I come from. Yeah. All right, because we are set up to actually provide a trading platform for agricultural commodities as well as solid minerals. But in the time being, we're actually dealing with agricultural commodities. But if you're talking about the manufactured products, it still follows the same line of reasoning, because the manufacturing products, most of them have an agricultural background as raw materials. All right. So the quality as it is starts from where you begin to get the primary commodities per se. All right. Otherwise, you are not likely going to get a market for what you are producing.
Even with the commodities, Mr. Ijere raised the issue of demand for locally produced goods. Yes. Even with the commodities, do you think we have demand for locally produced commodities? For instance, if you take the nuts, that are sold, here in Nigeria, for example.
Yes, there is the demand. First of all, there are two types of demand. there is the local demand, there is the international demand. There is the demand for staples, for consumption. There is demand for industrial commodities. But the one that is much more, that would be much more relevant for the country, well, the issue of the consumption has to do with food security, which has to be addressed. But in most cases, people who are actually looking at maybe adding some income to maybe what they have, they're actually looking at producing for the industrial use. So the commodities, like for instance, we are talking about maize. We produce about an average annual production of maize is about 8.4 million metric tons, and rice is about 5.something metric tons. So, but yet we still sit down and still say that these ones are in short supply. You understand? So what it means is that there is actually demand for those particular commodities.
All right, Mr. Davu, thank you very much. Just to indicate that we have received reactions already from our viewers. We've taken advantage of the Twitter handle at NTA GMN. We're going to take some of those tweets now and then return to our guests to get their comments. As usual, we have this tweet from Sunny Michael Amakoji, one of our regulars. It says, Nigerian cashew produce are often rejected in most European markets because of absence of standards.
And Mike Anyako tweets, standard of Nigerian goods are relatively okay, only that foreign goods mentally have eaten deep into our society. Change begins with me.
All right, sorry about that, Cliff. So Clifford Agogoisi has this tweet, says patronage should be a critical component of our standardization efforts. And he also adds that corruption is the greatest enemy of quality and standardization.
And this one comes from Nazarite. Sometimes you find out that made in Nigeria goods are more expensive than imported goods of the same or superior quality.
Triumph Ateb has this. Do stakeholders listen to this program? If yes, what concrete infrastructure have they built to boost the quality of homemade goods?
And Ayuba Mohammed tweets, why made in Aba, why not made in Nigeria? And this one is specifically directed to the governor of Abia State.
And Ishak Saleh says, Nigerian products must be standardized through the purchase of modern machine and modern technology in order to compete globally.
And Change to Progress, which Nigerians are already resetting our confused heads. First situation has forced us to start thinking properly. Local products will grow.
And we have this from Faiz Ahmad. Faiz Ahmad tweets, where is SON in this conversation? SON should be represented because they are the body charged with standardization. Now, that's the response to that from us straight away, is that they were invited, but we got no response from them to be on this discussion segment.
And Ibe Munachim, so how many of Nigerian politicians use made in Nigerian goods? Shoes, cars, clothes, and so on.
And we have this from Shitu 10. It says, I pray the Nigerian elite won't force the federal government hands on the forex policy so that we come back to our local products. Dubai shops are missing us.
All right, those are some of the tweets that we have received. Of course, our Twitter handle is still at NTA GMN. Please keep the tweets coming within the period, of course, that we have got. Let's get back to our conversation. And again, let me get back to the governor of Abia State. You heard Mr. Jewere talk about the need to grow demand for our locally produced goods. Of course, Casely did chip in that we have the demand, but in this case, demand for foreign goods. So how do we grow our patronage for locally produced goods? Do we need a legislation?
Well, I think we need everything we can get into the basket to get us driving in this direction. But the first problem is sophistication, over-sophistication. Our people like to pride themselves to say that they bought something in a Gucci shop and all that. And it runs contrary to a local adage in my place that says that nobody condemns the soup prepared by his mother. I'm not saying that Nigeria should take all kinds of things. My fair comments about standardization is that, well, let us set standards for Nigerian products, what we need. Like Ijewere said, let the Nigerian standard drive our need. If you want to buy cars, you often hear American specifications. European specifications. There must be something which everywhere in the world people would say, no, if it doesn't meet this standard, Nigerians will take it. You know, and then if we start with that, it begins to tell a story about our people, our culture. And part of what we have also done in Aba, you know, I want to allude to what my colleague here said. We started a program we call E4E, Education for Employment, because we want to create a critical base of technically minded people. And we started innovating the technical schools in the senatorial districts of my state. We want people to speak of Abia as a place where you can have technically minded people, competent hands in welding, all kinds of electricals, masonry, carpentry, all kinds of things, you know. And we think that once we're able to do that, we'll find people that can drive industries whenever they come to life, including the automation of shoe processing and shoemaking. And we are thinking seriously, like I said earlier, about the standard of our products. Right now, every shoe you make in Aba, there's a board that looks at it to make sure, like Kisley was saying, that size 42 is size 42. It's just the mentality of the average Nigerian that is the problem, you know. And at times, when you stamp Gucci on Abamed bags, the ladies go for them. You know.
Maybe they need to do more of that, so that, you know, those designer stuff that they carry with stocks and so on, and they normally have a parking space. So, Excellency, we'll come to you to get your closing thoughts. But let's return to Mr. Juan Kassler. Mr. Juan Kassler, one of the key points that, again, we can take away from this conversation is the need to focus on the local market. Good, I think the EU is helping in the drive for national quality infrastructure, but we also know that trade is war by other means. Will the EU countries be willing to lose their market share so that the Nigerian market can then begin to enjoy its own production and its own benefits? I mean, I know that you are that's my question.
I think that the question has two different angles. First, let me just confirm what our colleagues have spoken today. The first step is to focus on the domestic market, and the foundations that we are building with this program serve that purpose. It's necessary to have good institutions in Nigeria in order to make sure that the quality of the products sold in Nigeria is high. There's another important point that has been mentioned, is that we can build these institutions, this system, that at the end, if there is no demand for quality from the consumers, then we have a problem. And there needs to be some kind of sensitization of the consumer mindset in Nigeria in order to the consumer to demand quality. So again, there are different ways to promote this. On your question about losing out our barriers to trade, the whole idea is to increase trade both ways, is to increase exports of Nigeria to the EU and exports of the EU to Nigeria. So this is not a win-lose approach. It's a win-win situation. If Nigeria develops, it will be possible to export more, it will be possible to import more. So we all win. And that is the whole concept of trade, and particularly foreign trade. So we are very committed in our cooperation projects and also in our trade relations to get to that equation, as to say, to be able to have a win-win situation with Nigeria, by which we both increase our trade both ways.
All right, thank you. Mr. Jerry, I'd like to ask you, do you have any experience to share with us of exporting some of your products to European markets? And do you think that EU support for agricultural products, can be of help?
The EU, as of today, has presented to Nigeria and indeed West African countries the AEP, the agreement that they want of Nigeria and the EU to sign. Nigeria has not yet signed. Those countries like Ghana and so on who have signed it are having their produce landing in Europe at duty-free, whereas Nigerian goods have to pay duties because we've not agreed on it. that is a reality we have. So exposure to the EU has been a challenge as far as that is concerned. However, what we have done is the fact that we have now created an agency out there that ensures that whatever we are sending to them meets the quality of the EU. That is very important for you to know. And in fact, but the profitability of the project is not as high as you would have got in Nigeria, because you have to now reduce your price to meet the international price. The cost of moving it to the level where it will meet international standards is a lot higher than, because we are competing with countries like Indonesia, with Malaysia, with Brazil, and so on and so forth for our products. But the advantage we also have there is the population of the Nigerian people in Europe. I'm talking specifically of the experience we have had. But going beyond that, I still go back to what I said before. If we are going to take exports seriously, like was said, yes, we must think globally, but act locally. Acting locally is a lot more profitable today than actually exporting. What we're exporting, what my company is involved in exporting, is specifically for a small area and is targeted at the Nigerian community. And we have a huge Nigerian population in Europe and the United States as well. Those are issues that are particular to us. But looking at Nigeria globally, we as a people and as a government must come back and recognize the fact that we cannot compete globally. Running your generator is not the same as getting from the grid as they have in other countries that we're competing with. Providing your own road, the roadblocks we have in government agencies and so on and so forth is also a problem. So basically the answer to your question is that we should domesticate our thinking first before we move forward. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Emmanuel Ejewere, would like to thank you again for your insights in our conversation this morning. You joined us from our Lagos Network studios.
Thank you.
All right, now just before we call it a day in the conversation segment, we still have some tweets, and we'd like to take those tweets right away. Olusegun Dosumu has this: made in Nigeria goods aren't the problem here. The producers of made in Nigeria goods are the ones that lack integrity and honesty.
All right, and Dozie Ugo tweets, please, Mr. Kings, I guess he refers to Mr. Kingsley, is the governor using made in Nigeria cars like Peugeot or Innocent car? Dozie from Apple.
Okay, and then we have this from Ugovi Wonders. He said, we shouldn't just keep talking about patronizing made in Nigeria products. There's need to also back it up with action. Talk and do. According to him.
All right, Olusegun Dosumu tweets again, in as much as we're trying to promote SMEs, I think they should be properly trained on how to bring about quality products.
And Emeka Ogbonna has this tweet: Abia governor is trying, but low education of beneficiaries is frustrating the efforts. Let the polytechnics be empowered to help.
And this one, finally, Kingsley, slave of Allah, tweets, Nigerians should change their mindset about purchasing of foreign products before selling it to other countries.
All right, those are the tweets that we can take. Let's return to the governor of Abia State. Again, I'm sure that there are important lessons from this conversation together with your other interactions. The government at some point, would need to have an exit strategy to ensure that there's a greater flow of investment and a change, in the business pattern. What for you now are the priorities? What else would you be looking at for? Very briefly.
Well, quickly, once we are done with the basic infrastructure like light, the arrangement we are making in power supply is a stopgap arrangement, because we are looking forward to when geometric power will come on stream between the next 6 months or 1 year at most. Beyond that, we also want to hand over the resource center to the various clusters that produce these things and make sure. But again, I will continue to do the marketing and then tell the whole world that if it's good enough for me, I think it should be good enough for Nigeria. The most unfortunate person in this world is somebody who has nothing to be proud of. And finally, made in Aba is made in Aba in Nigeria. After all, Atlanta is the poultry capital of the United States of America. We must be known for something.
Well, Your Excellency, we'd like to thank you for being part of our conversation today. Just to add, you are a biochemist by training, politician now, governor of Abia State.
And a marketer.
Well, a marketer, but perhaps an amateur marketer, with its respect. So I'm sure that, professional marketers in Nigeria will come knocking at your door and others elsewhere to say, look, we can help you.
They're welcome. They're welcome.
Right. Beginning with NTA marketers.
Okay, Claire. Yes.
All right, Kingsley, we also have, of course, EU guests here. What's your final word? What's the way forward now to, of course, get our products, locally to be internationally accepted?
As I think that we have discussed today, this is a long process, and I think that we have to start by setting the foundations for ensuring that there are quality products being sold in Nigeria, in the domestic market. And with time, obviously, the companies that are selling these products will be able to start thinking about the export markets. From the European Union point of view, we continue to support the Nigerian economy in this effort to diversify and to regain competitiveness. And as I said, this project will continue for 1.5 years, 2 years, but then we have other ideas in mind that we are discussing with the government. Our projects are not EU projects, are projects that are agreed with the government and with the stakeholders that we speak with, and I think that today it's been shown that we have a good connection in relation with these stakeholders.
All right, Mr. Juan Kaslab, Head of Section Economy and Energy of the European Union Delegation to Nigeria, we thank you for being part of our discussion this morning.
Thank you.
Also, we'd like to also thank Mr. Leziki Adavo, is Head Market Development of the Nigerian Commodity Exchange. Thank you for your participation.
Thank you.
All right, now of course, we earlier had signed off the governor, but let me quickly return to thank His Excellency, the Governor of Abia State, Dr. Okezie Ikpeazu. Thank you very much for being part of our discussion this morning. All right, that does it for us in our conversation segment, and to close,